This one's a little different. Rather than try to make a rundown of every movie in the MCU, we decided to do rundowns of each phase of the MCU. The movies featured in this will be Captain America The First Avenger, Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, Thor, and the Avengers. If you want to go to a specific movie on that list, click on the annotation on the screen or click the links in the description if you don't like clicking on screens for some reason, I guess. Rather than go over the entire movie like we usually would in these videos, we're just going to hit the main points of each and give a basic overview of what you might need to know. So I'm John from Observe Media, and this is a rundown of Marvel Phase 1. We'll start with the movie that would have happened first in the timeline, then move on from there. So starting out, Captain America, the First Avenger. At the beginning of the movie, a group of men find a frozen body of Captain America in some plane wreckage. Captain America the First Avenger introduces Steve Rogers, a smaller man trying desperately to enlist in the army. His best friend Bucky Barnes often defends him from people he picks fights with. Steve gets enlisted into the Strategic Scientific Reserve as part of the Super Soldier Project by Dr. Abraham Erskine. There he meets Peggy Carter, an agent who takes a liking to Steve. With the help of Howard Stark, father of Tony Stark, Dr. Erskine initiates the super soldier procedure on Steve, giving him enhanced strength, speed, and agility. Steve is mostly just used as a propaganda guy and an actor, more than an actual soldier. Meanwhile, we have our villain, Johann Schmidt, the Red Skull. He finds an object called the Tesseract, which he says holds great power. His top scientist, Arnim Zola, creates weapons using the Tesseract's power. The Nazi Party finds out that he is going to turn on them and take over himself with his organization Hydra. Bucky and a number of other soldiers are captured by Hydra. Steve, with the help of Peggy and Howard, goes to the base they're being held at and frees them. After that, he gets Bucky and a group of soldiers in the comics known as the Howling Commandos together to take down Hydra one base at a time. Eventually, they capture Arnim Zoloff, but in the process, Bucky gets knocked off the train and falls to his supposed death. Captain America and the others attempt to stop Red Skull from using the WMD in the form of a giant plane with explosive devices armed on it, and ready to be dropped on major cities across the US. Cap gets on the plane and fights Red Skull. Skull ends up grabbing the Tesseract, which either kills him or teleports him somewhere, it's not totally clear which. Cap realizes he can't land the plane without the device being detonated, and he needs to take it down in the water manually. He says goodbye to Peggy as he crashes. He wakes up in a hospital room but realizes quickly that it's not real. It's a set designed by S.H.I.E.L.D., a global peacekeeping organization. He runs outside and finds himself in the middle of modern-day Times Square. He is met by Nick Fury, leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., who tells him he's been asleep for nearly 70 years, frozen in ice. Iron Man. Iron Man introduces us to Tony Stark, a billionaire and leader of Stark Industries, which he has inherited from his father Howard. Stark Industries is a weapons contractor. He is in Afghanistan with Lieutenant Colonel James Rhodes to show a new missile his company has created. Stark is captured by a terrorist group known as the Ten Rings. They tell him they will free him if he builds a version of the new missile for them. During the capture, Stark is wounded, sending shrapnel into his heart. Another doctor they have captured implants an electromagnet into Stark's heart to keep this shrapnel from killing him. Stark says he's building the missile, but he actually builds a robot suit, which he then uses to escape. He finds out the Ten Rings have Stark weapons and burns them all. After this, Stark decides not to manufacture weapons anymore. The company's manager, Obadiah Stane, says they should keep making weapons. Stark takes time to build new, better armor, and creates a more powerful electromagnet to keep himself alive. He finds out that Stane has been selling weapons to the Ten Rings. He goes to Afghanistan to destroy the weapons and save villagers. He gets attacked on the way home by U.S. forces and reveals his identity to James Rhodes to try and get them to stop. Stark's secretary and love interest, Pepper Potts, meets with Phil Coulson, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., to tell him what Stane is doing. Stane has his men reverse engineer Stark's first suit to make another one.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
They can't create an arc reactor, so Stane steals one from Stark. He uses the suit to fight the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who try to arrest him. Stark fights Stane and ends up killing him. At a press conference, Stark reveals to the world that he is Iron Man. After the credits, Stark is met by Nick Fury, who wants to discuss something he calls the Avengers Initiative. The Incredible Hulk. If you want a reason why Bruce Banner looks like Edward Norton at this point in time and looks like Mark Ruffalo later on, my explanation is that in an attempt to escape from the military and stay off the radar, he had plastic surgery. But that's just me. The Incredible Hulk introduces us to Bruce Banner. Banner had an accident while trying to recreate the super soldier procedure that created Captain America. The accident doused him with gamma radiation, and now whenever his heart rate goes over 200, he turns into a green giant known as the Hulk. Bruce is running from the U.S. military after the Hulk killed a number of people in the area of the accident. General Ross wants to use the Hulk as a weapon. Bruce is basically trying to find a way to change himself back to normal. General Ross puts together a special forces team to take down the Hulk. The leader, a Marine named Emil Blonsky, agrees to a procedure where he will be injected with a small amount of the super soldier serum that Banner was making, giving him enhanced speed, strength, and agility. Banner meets with his old girlfriend and daughter of General Ross, Betty Ross. General Ross finds them and sends the Special Forces team led by Emil Blonsky to capture Banner. Banner turns into the Hulk and beats them, nearly killing Blonsky. Bruce and Betty get away. They meet a man Banner had been in contact with named Dr. Samuel Stearns. Stearns has developed a possible antidote to the Hulk. After administering the antidote, Bruce finds out that Stearns has synthesized Banner's blood into a large supply, hoping to apply it to medical practices. Blonsky, now healed, leads a team of forces into Stearns' home and takes Betty and Banner into custody. Blonsky then forces Stearns to inject him with Banner's blood, wanting the power the Hulk has. The procedure mutates Blonsky, turning him into the Abomination, stronger and bigger than the Hulk and just as insane. He attacks Stearns. We see Stearns laying on the floor with Banner's blood somehow mutating his brain. He leaves him to either become the psychic comic book villain The Leader or never be mentioned in the MCU again. Want to know which? Find out in the other Marvel Phase rundowns. Anyway, Blonsky starts destroying Harlem. Ross realizes the Hulk is the only one who can stop him. Banner decides to jump out of the helicopter they're in an attempt to turn into the Hulk again. He does transform and the Hulk beats Blonsky. He runs away, escaping from General Ross and leaving Betty behind. Later, we see Banner basically using meditation to try and control his transformation into the Hulk. After the credits, Tony Stark approaches General Ross in a bar and tells him that they are putting together a team. Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 brings us back to Tony Stark and introduces us to Ivan Vanko. Ivan's father died after being sent to the Gulag, following his work with Tony Stark's father, Howard. Howard and Vanko's father worked together on an arc reactor, but when Vanko's father wanted to sell it, Howard had him deported. Tony finds out the core of his arc reactor that he has in his chest is poisoning him, but it's the only thing that keeps him alive and powers his suit. Knowing that he is slowly dying, he makes Pepper Potts the CEO of Stark Industries, and hires a woman named Natalie Rushman to take her place as his new personal assistant. The government is pressuring Tony to sell them his Iron Man designs and suits, as they aren't having luck in recreating them themselves. Tony refuses to sell them anything, telling them that Iron Man is him only.
You want my property? You can't have it. But I did you a big favor. I have successfully privatized world peace.
Vanko attacks Tony Stark as he is racing in the Monaco Grand Prix. He's using electrified whips that cut the car he's racing in half. Tony gets into his newest armor, the Mark V, and beats Vanko. Vanko says he wants to prove that Iron Man is not invincible. Justin Hammer, a rival to Tony Stark, breaks Vanko out of prison and hires him to build some armored suits to upstage Stark. During his birthday party, Tony gets very drunk in the Iron Man suit, and Colonel James Rhodes decides to put on Stark's old Mark II armor and stop him. The two fight, but neither wins. Rhodes keeps the Mark II armor and delivers it to the U.S. Air Force. Nick Fury finds Stark and tells him about what happened between Stark's father and Vanko's father. He also reveals that Natalie Rushman is actually a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent named Natasha Romanoff, also known as the Black Widow. Fury gives Stark some old material his father had left with S.H.I.E.L.D., along with a diorama of the 1974 Stark Expo. Stark realizes the diorama contains a diagram for a new element. He creates the element and uses it in the arc reactor in his chest, replacing the core that had been poisoning him. Hammer reveals the armored suits to the world, but Vanko has made drones instead of suits. He also reveals a new suit being worn by Rhodes. Stark comes to warn them about Vanko, but Vanko takes control of the drones and Rhodes' armor, leading to a fight in the streets. Black Widow helps Rhodes get control of his armor again, and together he and Stark defeat Vanko, who fights them using a suit he made for himself. Vanko blows up his suit with himself inside. At the debriefing, Fury tells Stark that he is only being considered as a consultant for the Avengers instead of a member. After the credits, Agent Phil Coulson and other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents find a large hammer in the desert in New Mexico. Thor. Thor begins with Odin, king of Asgard, leading the Asgardians to defeat the frost giants of Jotunheim, and taking their power source, the Casket of Ancient Winters. Much later in time, the frost giants come to Asgard to retrieve the casket, interrupting as Thor gets ready to become the next king of Asgard. Thor decides to lead a team against Odin's wishes to Jotunheim to fight Laufey, king of the frost giants. The team consists of his brother Loki, his friend Sif, and the warriors three, Volstagg, Fandral, and Hogun. The team does their best but can't hold up against the frost giants. Eventually Odin arrives to save them, which breaks the alliance between Asgard and Jotunheim. Furious at Thor for going against his wishes and breaking the alliance, Odin banishes him to Earth and strips him of his powers. He puts a spell on Thor's hammer that will only allow anyone worthy of its power to use it. Thor ends up in New Mexico and is found by Dr. Jane Foster, Darcy, her assistant, and Dr. Eric Selvig, her mentor. As seen in the after-credits scene of Iron Man 2, the local town finds his hammer Mjolnir, but S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Phil Coulson sanction off the area around it. They also take all of Jane Foster's equipment, knowing it has readings from Thor's arrival. Thor tries to get Mjolnir back, but can't lift the hammer. S.H.I.E.L.D. captures him with the help of Hawkeye. Selvig helps him get away from them, and Thor returns to Jane and Darcy, beginning a relationship with Jane. Loki convinces Odin to tell him the truth about his past, finding out that he is actually Laufey's son, and that Odin took him after the war rather than leaving him to die. After an argument with Loki, Odin falls into Odin sleep, a coma-type state that he can recover his strength in. Loki takes the throne since Thor is banished. He makes a deal with Laufey to kill Odin. Sif and the Warriors 3 travel to Earth with the help of Heimdall, the gatekeeper of Asgard, to tell Thor what's happening and bring him back. After finding Thor, they are met with a destroyer sent by Loki. The destroyer nearly kills them, but Thor sacrifices himself to save them. This causes Mjolnir to see him as worthy and gives him his power back, letting him defeat the destroyer. Thor and the Warriors return to Asgard, where Loki has betrayed and killed Laufey. It's shown that this was all a plan to use the murder attempt to destroy Jotunheim and prove himself a worthy successor to the throne of Asgard. Thor fights Loki and destroys the Bifrost Bridge that connects the realms, in order to stop him from attacking Jotunheim, but also stranding himself on Asgard as he can no longer return to Earth. Back on Earth, Jane, Darcy, and Eric look for a way to reopen the portal that brought Thor to Earth. After the credits, Fury shows Selvig a cube-shaped object, the Tesseract, and asks him to study it. Selvig agrees, but is shown that Loki is controlling him. The Avengers. All of this leads up to the Avengers. The Avengers opens with the Tesseract opening a wormhole. Loki emerges from the wormhole and enslaves Eric Selvig, Hawkeye, and a few other agents and escapes, despite Nick Fury trying to stop him. Because of this, Fury activates the Avengers Initiative. He sends Black Widow to recruit Bruce Banner, who is hiding in Calcutta, and Phil Coulson is sent to recruit Tony Stark. Both check out the research into the Tesseract and find it. Fury recruits Steve Rogers, who is being housed by S.H.I.E.L.D., and asks him to lead a mission to retrieve the Tesseract. In Germany, Loki uses Barton to steal iridium, needing it to balance the power of the Tesseract. Loki causes a distraction at a nearby gala, which attracts Captain America, Black Widow, and Iron Man. Loki surrenders to them. As they take him back to S.H.I.E.L.D. HQ, Thor arrives and takes Loki. Iron Man and Cap fight Thor to a standstill, and Thor agrees to take Loki to the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, where a cell, which was made for the Hulk, is used to hold him. The team find out that S.H.I.E.L.D. plans to use the Tesseract to make weapons. But as they find out, Hawkeye and the other agents attack the helicarrier. Black Widow frees Hawkeye from Loki's control, but Loki succeeds in killing Agent Coulson, dropping Thor to the ground below in the cell he was trapped in, and sending the Hulk flying off the helicarrier. Fury tells the others about Coulson's death to motivate them to work as a team. They realize that Loki is going to use Stark Tower to open a wormhole to Earth. Loki has made a deal with the beings known as the Other, to lead a race known as the Chitauri to Earth. This is why they gave him the Tesseract. The team travels to New York City, where they meet up with Bruce Banner. They begin fighting the attacking Chitauri and evacuating civilians. Black Widow reaches Stark Tower, and Selvig tells her that Loki's scepter can destroy the device he was using to open the wormhole. Meanwhile, Hulk fights Loki.
Enough! You are all of you beneath me. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
And the World Security Council decide to try and end the invasion by firing a nuke at New York City. Stark takes the nuke and directs it into the wormhole. Flying through with it, it detonates and destroys the Chitauri mothership. The forces back on Earth all fall. Stark falls back to Earth as Black Widow closes the wormhole. Hulk catches Stark before he hits the ground. Loki and the Tesseract are taken back to Asgard by Thor, while the rest of the Avengers split up, going back to their own lives. Back in space, the Other tells his master Thanos that the attack on Earth failed. Back on Earth, the Avengers come back together to eat shawarma. So that was a rundown of Marvel Phase 1. You can find Phase 2 in our rundown list here. Please like and subscribe below, and be sure to check out our Facebook and check us out on Twitter at ObserveMediaZ. I'm John from Observe Media, and I will talk at you again later.